Hello everyone, and welcome to Tridge's webinar on the global outlook for the overview and outlook of global oil and oilseed markets. So it's been a roller coaster ride for vegetable oils over the last few years. And 14 months ago, we've seen unprecedented highs. And since then, prices have just plummeted back down again. And at the moment, if we're judging by the FAO's vegetable oil index, we're back to 5-year averages. Now, that's been skewed a bit by the high prices of 2022. And if we look at pre-pandemic prices, we're about 30 to 40% higher. Now, with all that's happened in the last few years, there's a lot of uncertainty in the oil and oilseed markets. And today we'll be taking a look at some of the situations at the moment and also some of the price drivers going forward. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so I'm going to go straight into the technical stuff. Just a few points for those of you who are not familiar with WebEx. If you look at the top of your screen and you want to change your layout, you will see the little button that says layout. You can click on that and choose the one you prefer. We suggest you use the side-by-side mode, because that way you can see both the presentation and the speaker at the same time. The second point will be, if you look in the bottom left corner of your screen, there's a small button with the CC, which is for closed captions. Now, if you use this, you'll be able to get some subtitles or some captions in different languages, although they're auto-generated by WebEx. So they might not be 100% accurate. The third point is that should you require proof of attendance, we will be providing the certificate of participation. In order to get this, how it's going to work is during the latter parts of the webinar, we'll be sharing a link to a survey. Now, these surveys, they help us make improvements on our webinars and put out the best content that we possibly can. So please take these surveys, and then towards the end of the survey, you'll have an option to choose if you would prefer this certificate of participation. If you would just click on that, fill in your details, and you will receive it by email. The next point is the use of the chat. So guys, please go ahead, use the chat for any technical questions you might have. We will answer via private message, and then also use the chat for any questions you might have during our webinar for the speakers, any webinar related discussions. However, if you would like to meet other buyers and sellers or some partners for your business, Tridge offers quite a fantastic option, which is Tridge Exhibition 365. So if you go here, you can see some verified buyers, verified sellers in your markets. So take a look at this. You'll meet some fantastic partners. For example, our sponsor of today's webinar, Alfoa, is also on there. And then on our platform, you will find some of the most up-to-date qualitative and quantitative data, weather data, price data. So if you're not familiar with Tridge, please take a look at that and join us on our website. And next, we'll be going to the agenda for today's webinar. So it will consist of 3 parts, but the first and the second part will be in one presentation, which will be done by Prince. So we'll be taking a look at the global supply and demand situation, then what are the key things that are driving the oil markets, and then we'll have a panel discussion with some of our experts here in Tridge. Now, I'm your host today. My name is Theo. I'm a global market analyst in the contents creation team. And then I'm joined by Prince, Ferhat, Yun, and Yasurbek. Now, I'll be asking them to introduce themselves as we get to their sections. Now, Prince is going to start, so he's going to tell us a little bit about he's going to give us a presentation, and in this presentation, he's going to answer some questions like, what is the current global supply and demand situation for different oils? And then what are the key drivers that are shaping the short-term outlook for oils? So hi, Prince. Nice to have you with us again. Could you just tell us who you are and what you do in Tridge, and then take it away from there?
Yeah, hello. Hope you can hear me, Theo. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Uh, and I'll try and be quick with my introduction. Of course, my name is Prince Yawson, and I look at the seed oils and dairy market at Tridge. So it's an interesting day today to cover the seed oils or oilseeds market. What I'll look at is I'll look at palm oil, and then we'll also look through sunflower oil. We'll look at rapeseed oil. You look at soybean, and then later we'll do olive oil. So I'll start with palm oil. And then, of course, some of you may already know that with palm oil, Malaysia and Indonesia are the biggest producers in terms of biggest producers and biggest exporters. When you look at the graph on the right, that's Malaysian palm oil production, because that's what we have the data for. You can see that from January to April, we saw Malaysian palm oil production move from 1.3 million metric tons, and then now they're about 1.1. That's from April to May, they've just come down. So in general, Malaysian palm oil production and stocks were higher year on year in the first quarter of 2023, and that helped to keep palm oil product prices low. If you compare the production in Q1 2023 versus Q1 2022, that's 3.92 million metric tons in Q1 23 versus 3.8 million metric tons in Q1 of 2022. So you could see that, you know, what we produce this year has been pretty good. But if you look at the graph on, that's the dotted red line, you can see that at this point in time, Malaysia is producing just below or somehow significant amount below the average. That's a 5-year average. In April, we saw crude palm oil production fall by 91,000 metric tons. So moving from 1.2 to 1.19, that's a significant decrease. That has seen inventories also showed similar bullish signals. So if you look at the graph down on beneath the production graph, you would see clearly that, and over here I've indicated a 5-year average line with a red dotted line going through. So in January and February, I think exports were good. But as you see from March, it's just fallen from 1.4 to just something above the 1 million metric tons. So what that means is that we're exporting so low. That actually translated into prices within the first quarter of the year. Within the first quarter of the year, China, which is a big buyer of palm oil, and India, which is also a big buyer of palm oil, reduced their palm oil purchases. And that actually affected prices. And you see from the next graph or the next slide as all right. So from the next slide over here, obviously, 1 minute. You can see the monthly export prices of processed palm oil, that's RBD palm oil and palm stearin. Prices in 2023 were below what we saw in 2021 and then in 2022 as well. It's only above the 2020 prices. So because of the production that we saw within the first quarter of the year, we began to see prices as well going significantly down. But that might change because demand is continual to come from India and China. We have seen demand from, say, April actually go up a bit. Also, the Malaysian ringgit has also traded slightly lower than the USD, making palm oil cheaper. So because holders of USD will find it cheaper to buy palm oil, so we're going to see increased purchases of palm oil. Now, if you look at the graphs on the bottom, Malaysian palm oil futures and then the crude palm oil, that's the Rotterdam spot prices. Prices are low at this point in time. But what are the key takeaways from what we've seen from this graph? We've seen Malaysian palm oil production coming down. We've seen export as well coming down. And then we're seeing that there's going to be increased buying activity from China and India. So in the short term, for trade, our views, I think we are going to continue to see prices maybe going up a little bit and staying within that territory for some time before any market development will push the market to come down. We go to soybeans, and we have the graph of Brazilian soybean and then Argentina soybean. And we put this graph there because these two countries are one of the biggest soybean producers. Now, in this market here alone, soy crop is expected to be around 163 million metric tons. Where is this coming from? The Brazilian soybean, if you look at the graph from 2022 to 2023, is moving from 155 million metric tons to 163 million metric tons. That's pretty huge. The red line is the average production for the 5-year average production. So in 2022, we saw production go above the 5-year average, and then in 2023 as well, with the harvest that's happened in April, this is what has been estimated to be produced. So obviously we're seeing a lot of products into the market, a lot of soy in the market. The Argentine soybean as well are seeing, similar action. In 2022, we saw production coming down from the 2021 figures to 27 million metric tons. Even though they had some poor weather this year, it's expected that we're going to see an increase to 48 million metric tons, which is really, really huge. You see from the next slide what that tells us for the global soybean picture. Now, if you look at sorry about the colors, but the black line over the black columns over here is the total demand, and then the other one is the total supply. Total supply for global soybean balance sheet is 681 million metric tons. Total demand is 559, which definitely you can see that supply outpaces the demand. And so it creates a lot of soybeans into the market. The rate of production is increasing higher than consumption. So total supply is expected to be that number. The demand side as well, as you can see, it's 559. And the difference in ending stock is plus 21 million metric tons. That's up 5% from the previous year. And the stock to use ratio is also up 32%. And obviously, when you see the stock to use ratio that has gone up, what that translates into prices, because that creates somehow some softness within the price market, and then we might see prices going down. So demand for soybeans and meal will edge up, but that from China will be at a diminishing rate. Fundamentally, China is the biggest buyer of soybeans oil. And you see from the next graph that their crashing rate is going to actually not be great. Somewhere in September last year, we did put two articles there where we said Chinese soy demand is going to decrease. This is because the Chinese government has come out with a policy to say that we need to decrease our reliance on soy export from Brazil, from Argentina, and possibly from the US. So they're going to use alternative oilseeds. They are talking about some cassava meal or sesame meal, groundnut meal, and what have you. So if the demand from China is going to go down, and then we are having a high supply as well, then obviously we're going to see prices in the short term moving pretty low. You can see on the graph below, prices at the moment are 488 for the Brazil benchmark prices. For the Argentine prices, that it's around 543. So prices are low since the Q4 of 2022. We saw prices coming down. And I mean, if you haven't covered at this point in time, I guess you have to cover because these prices are low. They may move further down looking at the fundamental picture, but I think it's a good time to get into the market and make some purchases if you want to buy some soy. On rapeseed, over here we're going to focus on the EU market because the EU is a big producer of rapeseed, and then we talk about Ukraine and Russia as well. The total supply picture in the EU is currently heavy. In the EU, we are seeing EU rapeseed forecasted to be around 19.5 million metric tons, which is actually really high. The planted area was high, and so we've seen higher yield. If you look at the graph that we see, the total demand is around 26 million metric tons. Total supply is 27 million metric tons. So that's 1 million higher, the supply higher than the demand for 2023. Can we go to the next graph? if when we go to the next graph, we talk about Australian and Canada canola. The big story coming out from Canada, from Australia this year is that their production is going to be 8.27 million metric tons. That is huge. Normally, every year, Australia mostly exports a lot of what it produces. So this year, if we're going to harvest in somewhere in September, October, then what it means is that they are going to actually export a lot more around, this is our own estimation, around 5, close to 6 million metric tons. And all these exports will definitely come into the EU market, or they will find their way into China. The EU, in the EU, it's having a good production this year. Global rapeseed meal as well is forecasted to be up 1%. The ending stocks are thus expected to recover slightly year on year. In China as well, which is a big buyer of rapeseed and rapeseed oil, we've seen production going high. So that will limit how much they're going to import from Canada and Australia. So we'll see much of that coming into the EU. Weak demand from both the biodiesel producers as well would influence the market. And as we saw from the palm oil graph or the palm oil presentation, there's a lot of palm oil that is coming into the market, or palm oil available. We are entering into the summer months in Europe, so palm oil does not solidify, right? So biodiesel producers are going to have a lot more chance to use palm oil for the biodiesel production. They've got the rapeseed as well to use. So for rapeseed, my view is that it's going to stay very low, at least in the short term, and then something might possibly move the market. Maybe fundamentally, it's very heavy. Maybe in the market, the technicals might act up and cause prices to go somewhere. But if you look at the fundamental picture of you're going to trade your rapeseed on the fundamental market, then I think prices are going to be very low. Now we go to sunflower. Sorry, 1 minute. So for sunflower, the 2023 to 24 Ukrainian sunflower seeds sowing has progressed significantly, and we're going to see a lot being sown. It's been said that about 137 to 300 hectares has been sold so far. So it's been seeded, it's in the ground. At the moment, we're in the dormant stage. The weather has been pretty good. We've not seen any adverse weather so far. Global sunflower seed production in the 2023-24 is also forecast to increase by 6%. And one thing that I need to mention is the ongoing conflict in the Black Sea that has thrown some doubt over the direction of the market. Russia is producing a lot more sunflower. They're able to export more. They're exporting more to China. But the problem has been with the difficulty, I would say, has been with Ukraine, who have been, there's been a lot of blockade, as you all know. So there's been the Black Sea sort of initiative that is helping now to transport some of their crops from that side through Romania. They're supporting Romania through Romania into the EU. Can we go into the next page, Theo? All right. So over here, about 90% of the oilseed crop will be crushed for oil and meal. And this is the graph you see on the right is a EU sunflower balance sheet. The total supply is around 12.23 million metric tons. Production in the EU, we're going to produce 9.17 million metric tons, and we're going to see 2.2 imports. Now, if you come to the supply, the demand side, we're going to use only 11.37 million metric tons. That leaves us with ending stocks, which is just under 1 million metric tons, which is quite good. The rate of crash will be dependent on the crash margins this year. The EU market as well has got sufficient oil in the market. The EU import of sunflower seeds are expected to nearly double to 2.2 million metric tons. Where's that coming from? We might see them taking that sunflower oil from Ukraine, coming from Romania, or Russia, if so be it. At the moment, we're seeing dry weather of around 5 millimeter or less across England, Germany, and France, which is favoring the development of reproductive to fill in winter oilseed. So the oilseed crop that is in the soil has been pretty good. The prices at the moment are trading at 497 USD per metric ton. It's still low. If you look at where prices were in March of 2022, prices were pretty high. They've come down significantly. We know that we can use sunflower as well, the sunflower oil as well for biodiesel production, but that needs to be bleached before using it. We may see, buyers with these low prices coming in to buy a lot of sunflower oil and using that for biodiesel. So the seed oils, palm oil, sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, the whole picture looks to be bearish from our end. Now, with olive oil, it is the only market that is not that is back in the trend of the oilseeds markets. There are some few points that I need to make before we continue. But most of the olive oil is produced in the EU. Most of the global olive is produced in the EU. On average, about 3 million of olive oil is produced globally, and around 2 million metric tons of this production takes place in the EU. And the main producers are Spain and Italy, Greece, and Portugal, even though we see countries like Turkey, Tunisia, Syria, and Morocco as well producing that. In last summer, we saw extensive dry weather all around Europe, especially in the Iberian Peninsula, so in Spain and Portugal. That actually caused a big problem for the olive oil crops. So we saw production coming down in the 2022-23 to globally to 2.51 million metric tons. That was influenced by decreases in production in the EU, but stable production in the rest of the world. Non-EU production for the 2022-2023 is expected about 1% below the 5-year average. But Spain's production is to halve to 68,000 metric tons, and Portugal as well is expected to be down to 39% to 126,000 metric tons. So throughout the EU, in Italy as well, we're seeing production come down. You'd see from here, in 2021-22, it was 2.27 million metric tons. In 2022 to 23, it's 1.39. That's EU production. And that all goes into the global production that is coming down to 2.51. And even if you look at the rate of change, from 2021, it moved from 13% to now minus 26%. So we've seen a significant decrease in the production. Despite the arrival of cooler weather of around maybe 3 degrees below normal recently, we've seen some long-term droughts that has actually intensified on Iberian Peninsula, so still Spain. And that translates into the prices. Now, the graph at the bottom shows a 5-year range, right? And then the average prices, and then we see prices in 2022, 2023, starting from October, because that's when the season starts. That goes without saying. Prices are way above the 5-year range and above the 5-year average. In October last year, they began from around 412 euros per 100 kilogram, and they've gone up to by about 147 euros to 559 euros per 100 kilograms. So that is huge. Now, for olive oil, I think the prices, they are behaving abnormally at the moment. Fundamentals are pretty poor. If you look at 3.40 to 2.51, way below the 5-year average. And so prices have traveled within that same territory. And so for olive oil, I guess anyone who has to buy olive oil should be covered by now, because I do not see the downside within the market. Prices are going to be pretty high. They're going to travel on the same territory, maybe from within 600 to 650. So the season, ends in September. So olive oil is in a very bullish territory at this point in time. And so if you haven't covered, I mean, the advice is that just go in and cover. There's a lot of retail demand as well, and activity coming from the consumer side. So in retail shops, in the restaurants as well, are buying a lot more olive oil for their cooking and so on and so forth. So it's bad news for olive oil, and the upside risk is a lot more than other markets. So that actually brings us to the end of the presentation from my end. And thank you so much for listening.
Friends, thank you very much. It seems like, except for olive oil, we're kind of in bearish territory. A lot of supply available. Just a quick question. Actually, a few questions, but we'll discuss them with the panel. But quick question I'd like to know is, in a situation where prices are pretty low like this, do we see something like, let's say, higher value oils being used more? Like how much can these oils be substituted between each other? For example, like rapeseed, sunflower.
I mean, rapeseed and sunflower oil, they are very close. They are very close substitutes, right? They are near the same. So I mean, when you go into the retail shop, for example, I mean, you don't mind whether it is used is from rapeseed or sunflower. So that does not matter. But when it comes to biodiesel production and those who use the biodiesel, who use the seed oils to produce the biodiesel, then that comes into play. I mean, I mentioned earlier on that with using sunflower oil for biodiesel production, it needs to be bleached. And the last time I checked, that costs around, it was around 100 euros per, I can't remember whether it's per ton or per a particular quantity to bleach, as opposed to the rapeseed oil, right? So it's a lot more, but it depends on how low the price or how high the price discount is. So if you compare, for example, if you compare rapeseed oil and sunflower oil, if sunflower oil is pretty low, and then the cost of bleaching, you know, it's not that much, for example, based on the price, then I guess there will be a lot more people going in for sunflower for their biodiesel production.
See. All right. Thanks so much, Prince. We're going to go to our panel discussion. Before we go, I'm just going to ask some of our speakers to introduce themselves. So in our panel discussion, Prince will still be with us, and then Ferhat, Yoon, and Yasu will also join us for their different markets. We're going to take a deeper look. So I'm going to ask Ferhat. Ferhat, can you, I think most of us already know you. You've been on many of our webinars, but can you just tell us who you are and what you do in Tridge, and then give it over to Yoon and Yoon to Yasu.
Thanks, Theo, and hi everyone, welcome. Yeah, I've been working in Tridge as a global origination manager in supply chain solutions department. I have more than 15 years of agri-food sector's experience in various markets. Yeah. So for the question, the status.
Let's get Yoon and Yasu to also quickly introduce themselves.
All right.
We'll go over to the question.
Hello everyone. Good evening everyone. My name is Yoon Primawan. I'm based in Indonesia, based in Jakarta, Indonesia. For today's our webinar meeting, I will be more focusing on the palm oil, the current status and the current prospect in the short time for the palm oil in Indonesia. I saw there is a question from Erlina regarding coconut oil. Yeah, unfortunately today we are not preparing the information, the data about the coconut, but you feel free to contact me later, so we can discuss detail on the coconut oil. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Yoon and Yasu.
Hi everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Jasurbek. I'm based in Seoul, South Korea, and I'm global market analyst at the intelligence department at Tridge. So my specialty is basically grain and oil and oil seeds, also fruit and vegetables. So geographically, I cover Europe and Central Asia region, as well as South Korean market. And today during the webinar, I'm going to try to bring some insight on sunflower oil markets. So in like Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Russia. Thank you
very much, Yasu. Thank you, guys. So I think let's get straight into it. The first question is specifically in your region. What does the supply situation look like? And then there's been like a lot of changes over recent years. So also, what were some fundamental things that changed in these markets? I think for now we'll keep the same order. So we'll go with Ferhat and then Yoon and then Yasser. So Ferhat, can you tell us more about Turkey
Yeah,
and the region?
yeah, Theo. Actually, Europe's oil farmers had record temperatures and lack of rainfall for the last few seasons, and this slashed their harvest, resulted with olive oil prices increased. However, Turkey's olive oil exports in the 2021-2022 season increased by 50% compared to the previous period, with the help of the right agricultural government policies, including free consultancy to the farmers and suppliers about planting, harvesting, and processing. On the other hand, some custom gate measures has been taken by the government, like integrating export analysis laboratories to maintain the product quality and to protect the qualified producers.
All right, thanks,
Yeah,
Ferhat. I've got some questions on that too, but we'll cover them after Yoon and Yasser. So Yoon, can you
sure.
please go?
Yes, regarding the palm oil, so I think we are in the short time there will be very interesting situation in terms of supply of of the palm oil in Indonesia. As you may aware that starting from next month, the Indonesia will start the palm oil exchange, which is, and also there is a situation about the changes of the government policy in terms of DMO. So domestic market obligation, which is just decided by the government and just 1 or 2 weeks back, which is giving a security to ensurement to the market about the stability of the pricings. And also there is started from this year, the B35 biodiesel obligation from the government is already effective. There's going to be big changes in terms of supply of the palm oil to the market and allocation for the export. And another challenge from the Indonesia is in terms of the started of the carbon tax, but I think this is going to be delayed and postponed to be 2030. And all this situation is really interesting because, as you know, Indonesia is a number one producer of the palm oil, and Indonesia, I think, is contributing about 32% of the global oil and fat production. So the situation in Indonesia and the government policy in terms of supply and demand is really affecting on the global prices of the vegetable oils. And we see also the demand of the vegetable oil is growing. Unfortunately, I think in this year it is predicted for Indonesia in terms of production will be stagnant compared to year on year compared to last year's, mainly because of the replanting issue and also anticipating the climate issue, which is predicted to start affecting from second semester of this year's. I think that is quite brief in terms of the current situation in the market in Indonesia in terms of palm oil. So I welcome if you have any question. Thank you.
Theo, I think just follow up on that. You did say about the biodiesel mandate, is it B30 or B35? Because over the past few years in Indonesia and Indonesia, there's been a lot of talk about this, B30 mandate, B35, but normally it doesn't happen, right? Now you've told us that production is going to be flat year on year. Can you tell us how sure this biodiesel mandate will be implemented this year, right? And of course, if it's implemented, that actually is going to have significant effect on the market because, yeah, definitely we are entering into the average harvest season for both Indonesia and Malaysia, but we're seeing production going down. And from what you're saying of production being flat, if the biodiesel mandate is being implemented, then it's going to be really there for the palm oil market. But how sure are you that this, or from what you're hearing from market players, how sure is that the government is going to implement the mandate this year?
is the policy is actually already released and effective from February 2023, and this is already effective. In terms of supply from the government, in terms of the production this year, we see the recent data that already released from the association January, February, March. January and February, we see decline of productions, about 12% production decline in January, February, but and only a very small percentage of growth in March. So based on that, also based on this first quarter result, then I think the prediction is quite optimistic. We'll be achieving the same result. So productivity, production still predicted to be very conservative. That because of the two variables that I was mentioned about the replantings and also about the weather issue.
And then you said, I think when we talked earlier, you said that Malaysia, so basically both Malaysia and Indonesia are expecting production to stay kind of flat at the moment. And there's some replanting in Malaysia taking place. So can you tell us a little bit about like oil palm trees? How long before they become productive? How long do they stay in production? And then in Malaysia and Indonesia, are there still areas available for expansion?
Yeah, in terms of Malaysia, I think the issue last year is about the labor forces, which is there was an issue in terms of availability of labor in Malaysia, but at the end of this last year, 2022, the labor is around September, the labor forces is already settled. Still some minor issue in quarter one this year, but they are already, I think, solved mainly of the issues in for the Malaysia. I think that's all that I can add about the Malaysia.
The production of the tree. So how long do these trees do?
I think it's 4 years, right? I think it takes 4 years for the tree when it's planted to the time when it produces fruit. I don't know whether there's been any some of the seeds possibly have been genetically modified to grow over a year or 2 years. I don't know, but with I think it's 4 years. I think so. So
Yeah,
I mean, but
yeah, the palm oil can be productive until 25 years old, but of course, I think the productivity, the yield productivity is declining time by time. And Indonesia is already, Indonesia plantation is mainly controlled. Most of the plantation is also small farms managed by traditional farmers. And in terms of that, the government need to give incentive to the farmer to do replanting because the productivity started to decline. And the government Indonesia is already started to give incentive to the farmer to start the replanting. I think from 5 years back, and the production, the productivity age is starting to. We expect to start hopefully by next year.
So no quick fix like in field crops where you can just plant more in 1 year. You have to wait a bit with palm oils. Thanks so much for that, Yoon and Prince. We're gonna go back to the Black Sea region, Europe and Yasu. So how about in your region, the regions you cover? Can you tell us what is the current supply situation and how has it
Thank you,
changed?
Theo. Yes, in sunflower oil segmentation, yes, definitely Russia, Ukraine, those are the major producers, those are the major exporting countries. So like 2022 was quite challenging year, especially for Ukraine. So because we can observe their significant decrease in terms of production, in terms of the production of the sunflower seed and sunflower oil. And also we can see the decrease in terms of export also. So yeah, like historical data like shows that 53.20% of the total sunflower oil exports in the world it goes to Ukraine, but last year, 2022, so we can see significant decrease. So crop year, so Ukraine produced like 10 million metric tons of sunflower seed, which is 41% year-on-year decrease compared to the previous year, which was 17 million metric tons. The current situation can be explained, of course, with the ongoing geopolitical conflict, so the war in Ukraine. Many sunflower oilseed fields have been destroyed because of the war, and which affected overall the sunflower oil production in Ukraine. And so looking at the export statistics, so last year, 2022, export volume of sunflower oil from Ukraine amounted 4.5 million metric tons, making so it's decreased from the previous periods. So this year, like 2022-2023 marketing years, it is projected to reach 3.6 million metric tons. Another, like in Russia, we can see in terms of production, it's increasing, and trade is also because of the close ties with China, and also increasing demand from those countries like China and India. Trade is also increasing in that part of the world. And another trend we can observe is emerging another supplier, is Kazakhstan is also major supplier of the sunflower oil. So in January, December 22, Kazakhstan produced 537.1 thousand tons, which is 62.2% year-on-year increase compared to the same period in 2021. So that's the overall market situation happening in Europe and Central Asia region in the sunflower oil segmentation.
So I see from Prince that I think there's a big expansion in this area. Is that mostly coming, Prince? Is that mostly coming from Russia, or do you think Ukrainian farmers were more confident to plant this year?
Yeah, but from this.
Sorry, can you come again, Theo? I didn't get
No,
the
from
question.
your presentation. Let me see if I can find the sunflower one. Yeah. So you said this is specifically in Ukraine. So they planted 137,000 hectares.
Yeah.
So is this up from the previous year?
I don't have the numbers of whether it's up year on year, or, but what I do know that I'm very sure is the global sunflower production is pretty high. Right, Russia has got higher production in Europe as well. Production is high. I guess in smaller markets like South Africa that also produces sunflower, production has gone high year on year. I don't have the numbers, but I do know for sure that there were some farms, some fields that were not tilled because there were occupation, right, and there was activities happening on there. But if you look at the production that's coming out from Ukraine, it's not pretty bad, looking at the situation that they have now. It's not pretty bad. They are, the whole production coming from the Black Sea region is pretty high. So, and as I said earlier on, that would put a lot of pressure on prices going into the next few months.
And then back to you. Yeah, sir.
Yeah, sure. Like as Prince mentioned, it's true. Like starting from this year, like as you can see in the presentation, 2023, 2024. So the situation is going back to normal situation in terms of the production in Ukraine also. It's also forecasted to increase this year. Russia, last year they produced 16.5 million of the sunflower seed, which was like very, very much significant increase. That's just some statistic I wanted to add here.
And how about Ferhat? How about in Turkey? What is the expectation there for? I think they also grow some sunflowers, and what is the weather outlook at the moment?
Yeah, actually, there are some problems between trade regions. When we take a European region producing sunflower seeds, it has to be exported back to Europe if you process the seeds imported from European region with a special document in order to not to exceed the tax limit in the European customs. So as it's a strategic product during the pandemic time, it is a little bit distorted actually. But on the other side, for domestic consumption and the export throughout African region, there had been no specific problems actually. And for the upper steps of Russia, you know, as the global air conditions is getting warmer day by day through Russia region, some extra fields has been cropped, and so the supply is expected to be increased from that region in the near future. Yeah, Theo.
Thank you, Ferhat, and thank you guys for these inputs. I think we need to go on to the next one so we can get through everything. So the next question we'd like to pose are in these markets, in your specific markets, we've already touched on some of them, but what are some of the risks involved, and then what are some of the opportunities that buyers and suppliers face? I think this time let's start with palm oil. So we're gonna start with you, Yoon, and yeah, can you tell us what are the main risks and opportunities?
Yeah, I think for this palm oil, the challenge, short-term challenge is we expect that the supply of the other seed oil will start to increase. That will be affecting also the in terms of competition of the vegetable oil in the market, and also the expectation is the price of the palm oil will started to start high demand. We expect that, but as I mentioned before, that there's some situation about supply, and in terms of the industry itself in Indonesia, as I already mentioned before, that there's opportunity for the Indonesian when we start the market exchange next month, which is by this regulation, all the transaction has to be done through the market exchange. This is and also the transaction will be in the local currency in Indonesian rupiah, and this is an opportunity for the Indonesia to have because before all the market and pricing of the palm oil is revert to the Malaysian exchange. But with this, that Indonesian influence in terms of supply of the palm oil to the market will become more bigger influence. And the another opportunity and challenge is in terms of the carbon tax, but this is going to be a long-term challenge because the government decided to postpone it to 2030. But the industry need to be prepared for that. The carbon tax is giving impact in terms of the increasing of the cost of the production for the product or for the producer, which is not comply to the carbon policy. But on the other hand, it's also giving opportunity for the producer if they can do replanting conservative, if they do conservation in their area of they are given the government the area of the production area, which is become that can be another income opportunity of income for the producers. And as Prince asking before is about the biodiesel program. This biodiesel program is at this moment is a B35, and we don't know what is the limit. I think maybe maximum be 50, which we don't know, maybe next 5 years or next 10 years. But this is a giving on a good sign for the producer because this is protecting the production that can be absorbed by the market. And another challenge is about the domestic market obligation. luckily and unfortunately, this year the government already decided not by a short period, by 2-3 months. Now the government already decided the DMO policy fixed until January 2024. This is good for the producers because they can plan better and anticipate, and this can be also reducing the fluctuation of the pricing on the market.
Theo, just
Yeah.
a 1 minute, Theo, just 1 minute comment on what are the risks for buyers. Now, if you're in this webinar and you're listening and you're a buyer of palm oil, I have mentioned about the diminishing production in Malaysia. Yoon has mentioned the production also going down in Indonesia. He's also mentioned mainly the B35 mandate. Now, I also mentioned the palm oil entering into the summer. Palm oil would not solidify, so it may be used for biodiesel production. So definitely looking at all these fundamental news, that there's a very high risk within the market for prices to go up. And so if I was a buyer, I would go into the market and take some 50% layer at least for the next 3 to 6 months, to hedge my risks from prices going higher.
And then on that, do you think, so this is both for you, Prince and you, do you guys think the like palm oil futures that will be listed on Indonesia Stock Exchange, is there going to be a difference in prices really from Malaysia? Would it make sense to hedge yourself in Indonesia rather than Malaysia? How do you think this is going to play out? Let me ask you first, Prince.
Well, and as I said earlier on as well, there's been a lot of talk about this palm oil futures in Indonesia. Is that going to be done? I'm not quite sure. That is going to happen within the shortest possible time. With time, I mean, the Malaysian palm oil futures is a market leader. It's a market benchmark, right? It's going to take a while for people either have to trade with the Malaysian palm oil futures or the Dalian futures in China or use the palm oil Rotterdam in Europe, right? So for any market to come or for any futures to come into the market to overtake any of these, I will struggle to see that happening. So yeah, I don't see beyond that happening. So I'm unable to answer whether there will be any discount in prices within those two. I don't know what Yoon thinks, but if I've not answered the question well, I think Yoon, if you can, then you can provide some additional comment to it.
Yeah, I think the Indonesian government is very optimistic that this commodity exchange for the palm oil in Malaysia will be started next month in June. From the official release, the BAPEPT, the government institution to manage all the exchange in Indonesia, commodity exchange in Indonesia, 5 days ago, and they are still very optimistic. In June, on schedule to be started in Indonesia. And the commodity exchange for the palm oil, the first stage will be focusing only for CPO products, and then slowly. I don't have the information about the time frames. They are going to continue with other CPO derivative products, and it's going to start it step by step, one by one. And this exchange is benchmarking to the Kuala Lumpur and Rotterdam exchange, and it is an obligation for the producers and buyers to make the transaction through the Indonesian Commodity Exchange. So it's depend on the buyers' planning and strategic planning. Are they going to sourcing from Malaysia or from Indonesia? And then also that, as you were mentioned, Prince, this may take times to become established, this commoditation market to become fixed and established, that as the character of the current leadership in Indonesia, which is very persistent and also very our president is a very persistent and very ambitious. I have the optimism that it's going to be fast.
All right, Yoon. To add to that and to answer Theo's question directly, now, no matter how prices be, I think that any arbitrage that would exist between those two markets will be lost, right? Because definitely, right, if there's a very huge arbitrage, people will then tend to make profit from possibly trading between those two markets. So I'm sure the prices are going to be possibly at the same level.
All right, guys, thanks. I think we need to continue on. We still got a lot to cover, but so much happening. We're gonna go on to the Black Sea region and Europe again. So let's start with Yasu, and then Yasu, you can just give over to Ferhat. So in this market, what are the risks? What are some opportunities that buyers and sellers face? Yes.
Okay, well, in the current situation, I should say buyers can expect like two potential risks. So they are supply disruptions, and the second one is regulatory and the trade barriers. So talking about the supply disruptions, so like natural disaster, crop diseases, or the hot topic like these days, political unrest, the war in Ukraine is also in major oilseed producing regions can disrupt the supply of oilseeds and oils. So I think buyers need to be prepared for potential supply disruptions and have contingency plans in place to mitigate all the impacts. And talking about the regulatory and the trade barriers, I think all buyers, especially in the let's say sunflower oilseed markets. So operating in the international markets, they face regulatory barriers and especially export restrictions or import restrictions, tariffs. So we can see like last year in March 31st, 2022. So Russia banned export of sunflower seeds until the end of August. But later, the Russian government extended again to longer term and also imposed like export quotas on sunflower oil to avoid like shortages and the pressure, and also like compliance with phytosanitary and the food safety regulations. All these like barriers can affect the smooth flow of trade and increase the costs. Like two these things we can expect. And the risks for suppliers, I think the increased commodity price, especially fertilizer price, so increased. So it can also suppliers of oilseed and oil are exposed to risk of the fluctuating commodity prices, and so because of the like political reasons and because of the shortages of these fertilizers, so they actually like affect their revenue and the profitability, and especially like productions costs are not managed, so they are like not anymore interested in producing and supplying their products. Regarding the like some small opportunities for some countries, so buyers can explore opportunities to diversify their supplier base, considering sources from different geographical regions. So this can actually help reduce dependence on a single supplier and provide access to wider range of products and pricing options also. Yeah, that's all, Theo.
Thank you, Yasu. And Ferhat, how about in Turkey and the European region?
Yeah, thanks, Theo. Yeah, increasing consumer preferences for healthier foods and the Mediterranean diet, rapid extension in the food and beverage industry, and the growing health consciousness among consumers are some of the factors driving the olive oil and other health beneficial oil markets, which is directly related with the processing type of the products like cold pressing, which be much more demanded by the end consumers in the near future. Increasing demand would push the prices up more, as most oils are strategic products for the origin countries. Governments would increase the regulations further in the near future. Actually, in Tridge, we are continuously updating the average price of the products along with the decision helping strategic insights to our suppliers and buyers. I strongly recommend our partners to regularly check these Tridge services in order to make a strategic decision about near-term purchase plans or forecasts. And, one of the reasons that the supply is low right now, because due to a consciousness increase on consumer side, buyers noticed that some olive oil especially has been mixed with some other oils. And in order to protect the marketplace of responsible government, like Italy, take some measures about decreasing the fake olive oil amount, which they had experienced exporting through inner Europe and some Arabic countries as well. So again, we are suggesting to make trade with only the validated buyers and sellers. That's all from me, Theo.
Thank you, Ferhat. Yeah, I think should be careful in some situations. I just want to tell everyone that we might be running a bit over time. We've got one more question to cover that was on the agenda, so we'll have to go through it. Please feel free to stay. And also just anybody that would like to take the survey, please help us improve the content that we're putting out there. So that is available in the link. I'm going to ask our speakers just to give an answer. Try to keep it to just 1 minute. We know a lot of these mass-produced commodities are sometimes politically, they're subject to political interference. So let's take a look at this. How will geopolitical events and government policies continue to affect the oil and oilseeds markets? Let's just start with you, Ferhat, while you're going. Can you tell us in Turkey, what's the situation?
Yeah. As we had rapid expansion on agri-food sectors in the last few years, the supply chain became more sensitive to any conflict happening, not only around a specific region, but also in all territories. Increasing competition between source countries will likely to disrupt the global supply chain flow by revising their policies in the coming years, actually. So keeping governments' efforts, keeping themselves from conflicts are crucial here. We are hoping not to have any conflicts anymore.
Yeah, so how about you're covering the region with the conflict? How do you see geopolitics playing out in this part, and what are some other risks?
Oh yeah, like geopolitical events and all these government policies really sensitive, like our buyers and our suppliers really yeah, so it can actually have several effects in the market. Like it's not only about like oil market, vegetable oil market, but other agricultural commodities also we can see. So yeah, like trade policies, like changes in trade policies, including tariffs, import-export regulations, trade agreements, all like this can influence the global flow of oil or other agricultural commodities, and governments' decisions also to impose trade barriers and facilitate trade can affect the overall competitiveness. It can also affect the pricing. It can also supply availability of the let's say like vegetable oil or other agricultural commodities. And also geopolitical events, crisis, conflicts, it can affect to exporting countries' policies. Also, it can affect to importing countries' policies also. So in terms of exporting, so they can put temporary ban, or they can put some restriction, or they can put some quote. It can also seriously affect to the global trade. In the importing also, like higher increased tariffs, it also affect to the consumption. It also affects to the international trade. So yeah, like we always hope like the like not having any geopolitical conflicts or some significant events, so that buyers and suppliers across the globe, they can have like smoother trade, especially with our like Tridge platform. And that's the all on my side.
All right, I want to ask you just a quick question, just a short answer. You, maybe Prince or Ferhat, noticed the current situation with the Black Sea grain corridor. Do you have any updates? What's happening there, maybe?
Yeah, Theo, it's been renewed for a while ago, and now it's still on. But you know, there would be some expectations from Russia's side that if there will be another conflict with European countries, especially European Union management, it can be used as a weapon again. Still not solidified.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. All right, lastly, Yoon, we know that the Indonesian government often changes like the domestic supply that should be made available. There are always something changing. What are some events at the moment to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I think in terms of domestic event, I already explained before, but in terms of the global events, it is more on the substitute product of the palm oil, which is, we hope that the war in Ukraine is going to end soon. But the effect for the palm oil in Indonesia is not we need to anticipate, because we anticipate the sunflower oil supply. We started to be supply more to the market. That will be affecting the competing directly with the palm oil. And also the rapeseed and canola production, starting from last year, it already started to improve, and then we started to get supply to US market. This is also become a competition in terms of pricing to the palm oil. And also we see the mustard seed production in India also started to reach already increase, and expected to reach the higher level this year 2023. And also we see that the production of the soybean oil in Brazil is predicted to become 150 million ton 2023. This also become a competition to the Indonesian palm oil. Other than that, as you know, the palm oil is a product which is become a product that is become a topic of discussion everywhere, because they have a big challenge of the palm oil because of the from the NGO environmental issues, and many of the NGO or institution environmental NGO is trying to fight the palm oil. There are many negative campaigns about palm oil in the world, and the Indonesian, Malaysian government forced to make a joint force together to fight the issue and negotiate with the market. And fortunately, the joint effort was quite successful. At least we have a small win when we Indonesian and Malaysia negotiate with the EU market for the palm oil, and the the palm oil product is now become less resistant in terms of the government policy in the EU market. This is a very positive progress we have, and I think the Indonesian and Malaysian government see this as the way of how we handle the issue together, instead of doing and fighting this issue separately and sporadically. Why not the Indonesian and Malaysian join force to do the joint campaign? It was quite successful, and I think the both government is going to explore further, develop further to become more effective, to become more aggressive as well. Because I think in the last 10 years, the industry has becoming defensive in terms of fighting the black campaign to the market, and not only to the government NGO, the joint force also fight directly to the consumers. As you know, that the NGO is attacking, doing a campaign, negative campaign about the palm oil, not only on the high level, but also into the macros, to the micros. They do campaign and be giving a pressure directly to the buyers. They're giving pressure directly to the consumers, and this cannot be handled only sporadically. It has to be systematic. It has to be aggressive, and was successful trial last 2 years, and I think we can see in this 2023 onward the campaign from this Indonesian and Malaysian government to the market will become more and more aggressive.
Yeah, no, I know it goes all the way through to the end consumer where we see that. Thank you very much, Yun. Thank you very much, everybody. We did go a bit over time, so thank you for your patience. Once again, thank you for joining us today in our webinar. And then like a special thanks to all our experts today. So Yun, Ferhat, Yasur, and Prince for your insightful views into these markets. So thanks everybody again for joining us. Have a good day wherever you are, and we look forward to seeing you again in our June webinar.